consider that. We'll have that conversation for the public.
We also have some public comments I got to read, Lisa.
Okay, good. So first, let me just call the meeting to order. And then
Wait, Lisa, I got Darlene Young is here. I'm going to promote her.
okay, great.
There's also Brian Lutz is here. I'm going to promote him.
Good. And we'll start with the public hearing. I know that we may well have public participation on the noise ordinance too. So we need to separate public comment on the two public
Lisa,
hearings.
there's someone here who's under Lisa Shanahan guest. Do you know who that is?
No.
Okay, we'll just leave it alone then. Okay. The Darlene and Brian have been promoted, so we can start.
I mean, so much has happened this week. It's probably the right thing. All right, so I'm going to now call the regular meeting of the Ordinance Committee, 2005 to order. It is 7:03. The roll call is Heather Dunn is here, Josh Goldstein, Ann Wonderstrand, Johan Lopez, Jalen Seed, Nora Najelski-Eitner are all committee members in here. We have a full quorum, and Darlene Young, one of our other council people, are here today to listen in. The first order of business is a public hearing, and we have two of them today. And the first public hearing, and I know that there may be people here commenting on other items on the agenda, but right now, the only thing that we're going to be commenting on would be to discuss and vote Chapter 27, City Buildings and Facilities, Article 1, Naming, Sections 27-1, 27-2, and 27-3. So let's see if there's anybody here who have comments on that.
All right, so if you're a member of the public and you'd like to comment on that the specific sections in Chapter 27 that Lisa Shanahan just mentioned, please raise your hand now. Otherwise, we will close the public hearing. I have no one raising their hands. I have no emails concerning that particular section, Lisa.
Okay, good. And I think what we can do is discuss and vote on the two chapters together because they're very similar. We'll do each one separately, but let's have the second public hearing.
Sure.
Discuss and vote Chapter 95, Streets and Sidewalks, Article 2, Honorary and Historic Naming of Streets, Sections 9537, 9538, and 9539. So if there's anyone from the public who wants to speak on that, they should raise their hands now.
Let me check. No hands raised, and I also received no emails as it pertains to this specific ordinance either.
So I'll close the public hearing on that. And now what we can do is maybe, Brian, you can share your screen and we can just show the changes to our committee, remind them of the changes that we're making. These are.
Yeah, we're doing Chapter 27 first. Just give me a second.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a lot of emails I got to read on the next section, so I have them all up.
Lisa, are you going to do the changes I just sent before we just talked about, or you want me to do it?
Why don't you do it just because you probably have the whole thing marked up. And
this is Chapter 27. This is the naming of buildings and facilities, 27-1 through 2 and 3.
And then just for the committee to remind you, let me just see if I'm going to close this thing. What we're basically doing is my computer's making a lot of noise. What we're just basically doing is changing the rules to some degree about how we vote on how to name a building and later on a street and how many votes that are needed by Common Council to do so. And
we're also trying to make these, just for a summary for people who are trying to catch up or haven't seen this before, we're also trying to make these procedures identical so that we don't have two different procedures for naming streets and buildings and facilities.
Buildings and also parks.
Yep,
so both Tom and I noticed one thing that we didn't like. I was looking at the other one. So we're just going to leave. Well, this one's correct, Tom, right?
Yeah, this has the changes.
Yeah, this one has the change. So one of the things that we were doing is saying that you have to have a 2/3 majority of Common Council if you're naming a building, unless you're trying to name it after a living individual or somebody who's been deceased less than a year, and then it's 2/3 majority plus one, just a little bit higher bar. And that's that was
that's what it was before, and somehow that got dropped out.
Yeah, not really sure how. So that's what we're doing.
And just Lisa, on this one, just added the words "your section thereof" to conform to the language and the rest of the ordinance right there. That's that red you see there.
Yes.
Right, in number 2.
Yeah.
Got it. So I would entertain a motion to take this amended ordinance to Common Council. Thank you, Jalen, at our next meeting. So all in favor of taking the amended ordinance to council, please record your vote. It appears to be unanimous. Thanks all. And now what
Okay.
we're going to do is discuss and vote on Chapter 95, Streets and Sidewalks, Article 2, Honorary and Historic Naming of Streets. This somehow or another, the language got a little changed. They forgot the +1 vote at the very end of the ordinance, but we're going to fix that now.
Let's, yeah, we added it back.
We have the plus one is in two separate places. It's in 9538 and 9539.
Okay, good. And that was the change. We wanted to make it conform to how we were doing it with buildings and facilities. So great. So
Right.
that's
It's similar. 9538 says an individual shall be deceased at least 1 year prior to being named by the Common Council. Uh, unless the Common Council determines by 2/3 majority vote +1, that a living individual. And then the same thing you'll see in 9539C. It's 2/3 unless the person's alive, and then it's a 2/3 +1.
or deceased less than a year.
Right.
Right.
Or less than a year, correct.
Yes. Okay. So we can drop that and then we can have our Hollywood squares back so we can have a motion to take Chapter 95 to Common Council for approval. May I have a motion for that? Thank you, Josh. All in favor of taking Section 95 to council at our next meeting for a full vote? We have a full, everybody voted yes. That was unanimous, so that's great. So those items are done. That's on now your list to take that over for Common Council, Brian. Thank you. The next thing is we're going to open up public participation and comment on the full agenda. So there may be some people who want to speak now, especially on the noise ordinance we were expecting.
All right. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to read the emails and then I'll open it up to everybody else.
Do we have a lot of
'Cause-
emails, Brian?
no, they're short too.
Okay.
Jeremiah Sheen, my wife and I strongly is strongly in support of the neighborhood parking initiative. Daniel Ryan, dear members of the Ordinance Committee, given the pending opening of the Manresa Wilds Park on Manresa Island, I'm urging the committee to do everything necessary to implement a residential parking program as soon as possible. As the committee is undoubtedly aware from their many public events and website, Manresa Wilds is being developed with the undeniable and astounding generosity of Allison and Austin McCord as a 125-acre waterfront park for the entire Northeast region. Austin McCord has stated it is likely that people traveling to the park the people will be traveling to the park on foot or on bicycle and will be admitted without charge. While I think it's a great idea to discourage travel by private automobile, if people arriving by foot on bike will be admitted for free or at a discount, the neighboring streets will be overwhelmed by private vehicles. There's absolutely no downside to a residential parking program, and I would urge the committee to do whatever is needed to implement one as soon as possible. Manresa Wilds has stated its intent to open the public in stages with public access as soon as the spring, so action is needed ASAP. Thank you for your consideration. By the way, all emails will be attached to the minutes so everyone can see these. Pat Burns from Sable Street. Dear Mr. Candela, as a resident of Sable Street, I'm strongly in favor of a residential parking permit program. Sable Street and Woodward are already busy with cars because of the new pickleball courts. In the wake of the new Manresa Wilds, parking and traffic will be even more congested. This is a positive way to limit street parking to just tax-paying residents. Can the city explore parking behind the industrial buildings on Woodward, even if the city has to implement paid parking for the players? It is a small price for them to pay, considering all neighborhoods will be bearing the burden of additional traffic and parking. We are just sharing that burden. All right. Only a couple more. Dee Dee Yoder, 22 Sable Street. Dear Brian, I'm writing to you in support of the Norwalk residential parking ordinance. It's a great idea and also very important to help keep our neighborhood streets from filling up with cars. I live on Sable Street, which is 1 block long and with a dead end, and we are already having parking issues due to the popularity of the pickleball courts at the end of our block. We have several multiple family houses on our block that add multiple cars parked on the street. I cannot imagine what will happen with Manresa Wilds opens up for visitors from all over the country. It will be a nightmare. Please pass this ordinance. Thanks very much. Beverly Krieger, 9 Seabreeze Place, South Norwalk. Dear Mr. Candela, I'm writing to express my strong support for the proposed residential parking permit program ordinance. It is especially urgent that resident Parking only be implemented in sections of South Norwalk. It is not infrequent for the passage of large vehicles, including emergency vehicles, to be blocked by other stationary vehicles in this area. On numerous occasions, I and my neighbors have witnessed large vehicles having to back up and wait for other vehicles to have the clear way to rearrange themselves to get access to the neighborhood south of Woodward Avenue. The only problem is this problem is only going to get worse with time and will be further exacerbated with the proposed development of Marissa Island. I'm urging that a residential parking only ordinance be implemented on Woodward Avenue south of the Birch Street, Quintard, and through the neighborhoods of Harbor Shores. Thank you. Angus Beavers, 36 Neptune Avenue, Norwalk, Connecticut. Hello, Brian. I live at 36 Neptune in Harbor Shore, less than 500 yards from the entrance to Manresa. I cannot attend tonight's meeting on parking, so I'm submitting my thoughts below. I love what is happening at the former power plant. As for the parking, I'm sure all of us who live nearby will be impacted, not all negatively. That said, I do not wonder that there will be both sufficient parking at the site for daily attendance as well as special events. My suggestions: at the Manresa Park, there should be a large overflow space with grass parking for special events. Maybe the parking areas can be both fields for playing or lounging, as well as parking during special events. These flex lots should be planned accordingly. Hybrid grass and sturdy lawns to appease disgruntled local residents, perhaps relieve some of the parking on local streets. Consider offering overnight parking for commercial and even private vehicles in Manresa. Too many trucks and cars are parked in Harbor Shores, especially along Woodward Avenue, the main access street that hosts a lot of 18-wheel trucks. That said, overnight vehicles in Manresa need to be out by a certain time during the work week. This may address some of the current overflow on the streets in the Harbor Shores neighborhoods. It also honors the commercial workers who are vital to Norwalk. The increase in traffic may possibly be addressed by adding parking and/or street lanes by the commercial parking buildings that have large lawns, and rerouting some traffic on a new road behind on the water side of LaJoy's Recycling. Public buses do not need to access Manresa due to traffic. Add a small dedicated lane for bikes to and from Manresa to encourage bikers and possibly reduce cars. A guard or even scientist students could stay at the site overnight to monitor the situation. The gates could close at an appropriate time so night traffic is quieted. These were just some of the thoughts that I will no doubt expand on in the weeks ahead. The project has engaged my household. I have attended every meeting about Manresa but one so far. Please feel free to share or reach out to me about the comments. Thanks. That's it.
Okay, great. So let's open it up to the attendees, if you would.
Anybody who would like to speak about any of the items on the agenda, please raise your hand now. Welcome, Dan Ryan. You can unmute yourself and please go ahead. Just give your full name and address for the record, sir.
Hi, this is Dan Ryan at 23 Sable Street. Brian, you just read one of my emails. I think there is a serious potential issue that we're all facing here in this neighborhood as a result of Manresa and its intention to draw from the entire region. So I think it's absolutely vital that there be some kind of residential parking program in place. I think the emails have kind of expressed what all the residents are thinking. I'd be interested to hear what the committee's thoughts are and would probably like to address the committee after we've had a chance to hear from them. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. All right, so then.
We have one more so far.
Okay, great.
Mary Lou Barber, if you could just unmute yourself, full name and address from the record, and welcome. Mary Lou?
She appears to be unmuted.
Yeah, she's unmuted. Mary Lou, can you speak?
All right, maybe we'll come back to Mary Lou, give her another chance. Mary Lou, unfortunately,
Yeah, I'm going to try and remove her permission to talk and then give her permission to talk again. Hold on.
Okay, great.
Oh, wait. Where is Mary Lou? There she is. Mary Lou, can you unmute yourself and try speaking again?
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
All right, maybe we'll come back to Mary Lou. I don't know whether or not.
We'll see if anyone else wants to speak.
Yeah,
And
see
then,
if there's other
okay.
speakers.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak about any of the other items on the agenda besides Mary Lou? All right, Mary Lou, I'm going to give you one more chance. And then if you are unable to use, if the technology is not working, please send us an email and I will add your comments to our minutes and they will be attached to the minutes so that everyone will see what your comments are. I'm going to try again one more time.
Great. I was going to make that exact suggestion. Thank you, Brian.
Mary Lou, please unmute yourself. Give it another try. Does anyone hear her? I don't hear her.
No, it's unfortunate. So Mary Lou, we really encourage you to write us an email to Brian to bcandela@norwalkct.gov, and we'll put your comments on our minutes. We're very sorry that we can't take
Yeah.
your spoken comments.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to close public participation and the next item agenda on the, I've got a head cold and I'm not thinking, the next item is the acceptance of the minutes. So do I have a motion to accept the minutes as filed? Any revisions, edits, comments? Seeing none, let's vote to accept the minutes as filed. And that is everybody. Thank you so much. Okay, so now I'd like to
Lisa, I just have to abstain
on the
on
minutes.
the minutes. I just
Oh
wasn't
yeah, you
present at
missed,
the last
you
meeting.
missed. Exactly. So now I'd like to entertain a motion to move the new business materials up before the old business materials because we have Tom Livingston with us and he has to be somewhere. Thank you, Josh, for making that motion. We're going to move under new business items A and B to discuss and vote on chapter 126 and discuss and vote in chapter 84. So thank you very much. All in favor of moving those two agenda items forward? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Great. So the first item that we're going to discuss and vote on is Chapter 126 Pension Plan, Sections 1261, 1262, 1263, 1264, 1265, and 1266. So Tom,
Thank
take
you
it
for,
away.
thank you, and thank you for accommodating me. Hopefully this will be quick. This is another one of these amendments that is more in the housekeeping category. This is really being proposed to be amended to reflect the actual pension plan document. What we discovered is that the language in the pension board section 126.2 is inconsistent with what the actual pension plan document requires. And so what this does is it amends the ordinance to reflect the plan language. And specifically, it adds one member, if you will, what we call a public member, because that's what's used in the charter essentially. I'm not charter, I'm sorry, the pension plan. Then it adds members who are represented by the unions, and that's also the chief financial officer or the designee. And again, it just simply mirrors the language of the plan. There was one change though, which was not in the plan, but it was in the ordinance. The ordinance previously had terms of 5 years for the members. Under the charter, our new charter, not the new proposed charter, the maximum term for boards and commissions can be 4 years. So I've just taken the liberty of changing this to 4 years. And that's the purpose for these amendments. If you go down to section 3, all this does is it takes away the references to the city comptroller and make it the chief financial officer or the designee, which may be the comptroller, but really it puts the chief financial officer in the position they should be. Brian, before you go on too far, go back up.
Further?
And you're right there. I took out, no, too far.
Retirement
there.
allowance, right?
Retirement allowances. So it makes reference to the city charter. These are old references which are no longer applicable, so I just took them out and not necessary. And then the other changes to this chapter relate to just pronouns, I believe. So that's really all there is to this. Again, it's
Wanna roll it up? Yeah.
and
You'll see they, him, her, he.
yeah, that's all that is, the way we've been doing it. And the other section which you have is on the, you have that up, Ron? On the, is it defined contribution plan?
Chapter 84.
Yeah, 84.
Is this chapter 84?
Yeah, and all that does is it
Tom's
makes it.
frozen or am I frozen?
Am I frozen? I'm not frozen.
I'm gonna pull up 84 in a second. Hold on.
Yeah. I don't think I'm
Oh,
frozen.
there we go.
You're good.
It might have been me. My
Okay.
internet connection's unstable. I'm way down in the sticks.
These are minor changes in
Go ahead.
84.
Yeah, so what this provision provides is that the pension board is the OPEB board. And so since the pension board is the OPEB board, we want to make sure this language reflects what we just did. And that is, we took out the reference to the city comptroller serving as an ex officio board and the reference to 5 members because there are more than 5 members now. Similarly, in 3, we took out the reference city comptroller there, again, made it chief financial officer. So these are really just conforming to what we just talked about above. Well, very straightforward. Any questions?
Yeah, does any committee members have any questions with regard to these changes? We needed to make this conform because we were out of compliance.
Yeah. Now, I should say sometime down the road, we may want to revisit the whole pension plan ordinance, but that requires engaging ERISA attorneys, and this is a much more pressing matter than that.
So what I'd like to do is, if there's no questions for Tom, I'd like to have somebody propose a motion to send chapter 126, the pension plan, to public hearing at our next meeting.
And just one more thing too, like we need to amend this ordinance in chapter 126 so that we can actually appoint the final member. Like there were 3 appointments that just happened, but we need this other person appointed. And the way to do it is to get this through so we can then appoint them as soon as possible. So we have a full pension board so they can do all that work for the pension plan and the OPEB plan and all those other things.
Thank you.
So it is
That's
time sensitive.
very time sensitive. So a motion to take this to public hearing. Thank you, Heather. All in favor of taking it to public hearing at our next meeting? That's unanimous. Now let's discuss, let's vote on chapter 84, taking that to public hearing at our next meeting. Do I have a motion to do that? Thank you, Heather. You got them both. So all in favor of taking that to public hearing in October? Great, we've got it all. Thank you, Tom. Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate it. Thank you
We
all.
got that.
Thank you,
Have a
Tom.
good night.
Take
Have a good
care.
night.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to turn our attention to Jim Travers and move on to, on the next page, discuss and vote new ordinance residential parking program. So do you want to just kind of give us a high level, remind us all, Jim, where we are on this, and maybe Brian can show us the language at the same time? Because we could take this on to public hearing. And again, this is something ultimately it's going to be handled by the parking authority, right? Working out the details.
Right. So I think where we are is pretty much at the same point that we were before, right? Before the parking authority could take this up, you need to add this into ordinance to allow them the opportunity to do this. I think to explain a little bit, what got us here is, I think reading the new emails that came in this time, I think there shows consistent support for this going through. So there had been support in the past, and as we started to investigate it, what we found is that there was language that was needed to change in the state ordinance to allow this. So we had, sorry. We had petitioned the state legislation to take up the amended change. They took up the amended change, which allowed us to get into this point of having this within the city's ordinance, right, or charter. And once this is done, then the parking authority could then start the process of what the program would look like, and then the public, I think everything that was done. Excuse me, I should have come with a glass of water and I didn't. I think at that point, the really proven mechanism of how we do this is really looking at levels of engagement. And I think what we talked about last time was really building off the success of what we've done In the past, sorry again.
Dude,
Someone get this
and
man a glass of
Yeah,
water.
right,
take 2 seconds and get a glass of water.
Come
it's
on.
fine. I can
There's
finish this
no
again.
no train. We're not going to miss the train.
No, it's
Yeah.
fine, fine. Um, and then we really talked about to make sure that we heard from the vast amount of people, and what I think what we shown with the complete streets legislation is that 30-day comment period, so it's not reliant on someone coming to one meeting, but yet we use that 30 days to do ramping up notifications so that we hear from everyone, or the parking authority hears from everyone, to incorporate anything that may have gotten missed or changed. But I think at this point, it really is just where we were last time, right? Because they've not taken anything up, depending on if you were to say no, right? Then there isn't anything to take up. So
And it does feel like there is a lot of public support for it. And Jim, just give us a sense. Did you feel like you got a really pretty fulsome response to the 30-day public hearing on complete streets? It felt as though the public got very engaged in that. So it feels that this might be very helpful as well.
So I think that's really what the success out of that one is, really what's kind of driving the direction that we go. And I think that has been a little bit, as we do things and realize, hey, sometimes you do things right, right? Mimic those things that you do right, and I think the way that we do public meetings has been done right. And that 30-day comment period really, we got comments all throughout the time. And I think, we also got, some recognition of the appreciation, because it's sometimes often complex and you need time to digest. That is not fair when you're just going into a public meeting and then you need to digest everything and then figure out what you want. This allows people to think about how it affects them, right? And what it actually means. So I think the amount of comments that we got from public comment out of Complete Streets really is the driver of doing that. So it was very successful.
That's great. So Brian, we
Majority
could
were
take
very
that down
successful.
maybe, and then we can maybe take, oops, good. So we can see one another when we're
Darlene
on.
raised her hand. I don't know who else is raising their hands. I
I think
can't see
Heather's going to
everybody.
raise her hand too. So usually we go to committee members first, but Darlene was
Sure.
quick to raise her hand. So if Heather's okay with it,
I
we'll go
can
with her.
surely wait, Heather. I can wait my turn. You may be asking the
No,
same.
you were very quick.
I was waiting for Jim to finish wrap up.
Go ahead. I
Thank
think
you, Chair.
we're glad to have
So
you as a guest.
I can't express how hopeful and excited I am about this, because I've been talking about this for a long time, Jim. And my question is, does it extend throughout all of Norwalk? Are we really doing this in phases? And what areas are we talking about? I mean, I hear us talking about South Norwalk and Woodward. Like, what is this really going to look like?
So I think I would advocate
Quickly,
really.
like 5 minutes. I know that's a big question, so I'm just curious.
No, so I think ultimately that comes out of the parking authority, but I can tell you that I would certainly advocate very strongly. This is a citywide program, right? And it's also street by street, right? Because it does affect how people use their street, there are pros and cons to it. I think people need to be able to weigh what those are. And so I think it would be really looking at that when we look at successful programs, it's really delivered by the members of the community who live on the affected street, get to vote for the the adoption of this for their particular street. So I think it would it might be on A Street, it might not be on B Street, right? It
Jim,
also
can you
might be
just
on M Street.
maybe because Darlene wasn't here, can you give her a sense of that most of these programs, usually you have to get 75% of the street, some of the background on that. She might not know.
Yeah, so I think it really comes through so Brian has been doing a tremendous amount of research on other municipalities who have done it. I think and we have engaged in conversations with some consulting firms, not in a high, I think not in securing their services, but really more securing their opinions as we move forward. Pretty much consistently across the board, it is a petition from a street You need to have some level of majority that moves it forward, right? And you know, I think then it is just the, you know, the analysis of what it is, but it needs to be,
Not so
you know,
loud, Tommy.
I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, so it needs to be,
Sorry, this
you
is
know,
the ordinance to send it to them to develop a system for people. This is not the actual port.
No, it's
I
not.
think
I just thought wanted Darlene to know a little bit about how these
Mhm.
programs work because she wasn't here for the presentation, and I didn't want her to be confused that we're going to be doing something for the whole city through this. We're just permitting the parking authority to develop a program, but these programs really are driven by the neighbors on a given street. So I think that's what I wanted to share with her.
yeah,
So
and I think
Darlene,
Heather raises a really great point is that, you know, we were getting into details that have not been determined. So Darlene, how about is if you, you know, stop by me, you know, wait, you know,
I
when you're
didn't
around.
mind you finishing. I know you all have heard it before, and thank you, Heather, for that. But I'm asking this question too, and I'm glad you're explaining it because I think it's worth it that even if I'm able to direct people to this meeting so that they can hear it for themselves,
Yeah,
correct? So that
yeah,
I'm not giving misinformation. And if they don't have the opportunity to go to a parking authority meeting or come to your office, at least it's been said again, and I'm sure you've already had this conversation at prior meetings, but I think it is helpful to quickly repeat it, particularly
sure.
because I know that you and I've had this conversation just talking
Mhm.
about South Main Street. And
Yep.
so, you know, it's very different people who rent as opposed to people who actually own property. And they have more buy-in for a lot of people who own their properties, but people who rent also have concerns, but may not feel like they have that um ability to weigh in on this. So
Right. And
thank you for explaining that.
yeah, so it would be a majority, and I think it's really important. I think you brought up an important topic that those that rent are still residents, right? And so, you know, so I think that would make sure we will make sure that in the process that is, you know, that's part of the process. And so they, because I do think that sometimes residents don't feel that they have that voice, you know, and I think we will make sure that happens. But you know, it is, and largely, you know, when it's done, it's typically driven by the majority of the people in a neighborhood who are looking for this, and then some type of verification that it actually exists. So.
exactly.
And
So
can I just, you said 75% of people that live in a certain street or area would have to, is that what you said? Did I hear that right? Or no?
well, that's typical, but we're not.
Okay, just
That's
something like that, but it's a percentage of people, and that could also be an issue when you have people who don't actually want to, you know, who don't own and are renting and have more than one vehicle and create a problem. But that's okay. That's why we've got the parking authority that's going to move ahead with this. But it's just great to hear.
Yeah, we
Okay.
didn't want to deceive people that we're like making these rules because we're not, but I just wanted to give
Right.
you a sense that that's how it gets initiated.
Some level of majority. Yeah.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, so Heather, you had your hand up next, and then we'll go to Jalen.
I think I was trying to address my question or my comments about it, and I thank you so much because you know that I was on you about this, Jim, from a couple of years ago. I think it's very important. But I think that the important thing to note is that this ordinance just gives the authority to the parking authority to develop a plan. We don't know what that plan is. We can't get people upset about a plan yet. They can weigh in on what the plan is once the parking authority comes up with standards and guidelines. This is just saying that they are allowed to come up with standards and guidelines. What that looks like, we can all weigh in on. So that was my one comment about that is, do we want to include something here or is it premature? So once we get the procedures and guidelines from the parking authority, will we have to come back and do an ordinance about how it's voted on? Does that come back to ordinance or is it a plan? Because my concern is that as much as we all hear from our constituents, I think at some point it should become more legislative specifically where the street to the street is. In the same way, if you're going to rezone an area, it kind of comes the overall plan. I think it should come somewhat to the council. Does that make sense? When you're getting into specific areas of neighborhoods, yes, neighborhood becomes part of it, or it doesn't, as far as where the streets are. Does that make sense?
Well, it's a separate authority, so, it's not as though that the water authority comes back to us with their plans and things like that. I mean, they're the experts in this area, so wouldn't that be unusual, Jim, for an
No,
authority to be ridden by the
but
city?
they're going, my question is, are they going to get this plan? And is the plan voted on, or is it just like, once we say, okay, you can develop a plan, they're off on their own with no vote on whether it's a good plan or not? Do you know what I'm saying?
So, I think typically it's not that you're voting for them to create a plan. You're voting to adopt whether we have residential parking, a residential parking ordinance. But I also think like it becomes, we don't go back and say, here's how you ticket a car if it hasn't paid for the meter, right? So I do think it becomes a little bit more challenging for that to do. I think the thing that would be really driving this is really a public process, right? To make sure that, this has been really, in my view, yes, I think you have talked to me about this before. I've had this conversation with Darlene. I've had this conversation with other members of the council. But more importantly, I think what's the driver behind this has been the community at large. That is really, and this is something for the community at large. And I think we really want to make sure that the program itself is one that's supported by the community. Like, I think it would be a little peculiar, I think, to say, here, community, weigh in on how you want it. The creative program as the community wants it, and then that has to go back to the council then to vote whether the parking authority would then be able to adopt that or not, right? Because then it seems to be that you would be able to override the whole entire process of what we just went through.
But, okay, so just playing devil's advocate, parking authority could say, okay, we're gonna develop this plan and we're gonna charge people $75. And maybe the idea of this parking plan isn't to be punitive. Maybe it is. I guess the council could weigh in on it too. But I don't know that people have as much faith in, I don't know. I'm just gonna be quiet about it, I guess. Okay. I just
I have
think,
a thought on a different vein, but I do think it's worth jumping in if everyone doesn't mind. This particular strategy, I'm calling it a strategy, but essentially this legislative strategy is something we've done numerous times. It happened with, I believe, the noise ordinance. I think we did it with outdoor dining. I'm pretty sure we did it with complete streets, by the way. I'm pretty sure we did a version of this for vape shops. Well, not vape shops. I'm sorry, that's wrong.
Cannabis.
Cannabis. I do. One of the things that I think we always hold in our back pocket, Heather, is the ability to amend an ordinance. So if we think that the plan has gone too far, or if we think there's a problem with the guidelines, we have the legislative power to supersede a guideline by amending an ordinance. I don't think you're wrong, by the way. I just think that I just am putting that out there, and that's something that this is an issue we've confronted before. I see Nora's giving me very skeptical look, so I don't know if either I'm very wrong about this,
I think
or I
it's fear. It's like I just have a fear that, like I've had people, handicapped people say, oh, I got a ticket because I couldn't, whatever, and I tried to fight it, and it was like this thing, and I didn't.
yeah.
And I don't want to put us into another situation where it's expanded that level of people feeling like they don't have
But
agency.
yeah, but we have to keep in mind that we're dealing with authorities and ordinances. Authorities are just a different breed of cat, where we've given the authority the ability to regulate this activity. And so I guess I'm having trouble with, and maybe Brian can help us as, from the municipal legal standpoint, because I know we might differ among us lawyers, but if you've given the authority to regulate a certain behavior to an authority, an official body, and for it to come back for us to override, how does that work? I mean, I don't think we don't override stuff that's going on at the water authority and things like that. And Jalen, I note that you really got the next question, but I think what we're trying to do is address this issue that Heather's raised. So I haven't
Mine's
lost
kind of on that same topic.
Favor
Yeah.
of it. Just want to make sure that our residents don't down the road feel like they're being penalized unfairly for something, even though I think it's a really good thing that's going to move us forward a lot. You know what I
I'll
mean?
float something out after Jalen speaks.
Jalen, do you want to just put it, if your comment is furthering this conversation, if we're not going on to another one, let's throw that question
Yeah,
into
it's on this topic because I really do have have like kind of just trouble. I do support this, but like Heather said and other people said, we don't really know what this is going to look like. We're just given the authority. So for me to like really vote on this and feel confident in it, I feel like it should be something where it comes back to the council because like Josh said, with complete streets, we knew like the ins and outs of it kind of when it was coming up. With this, I feel like there should be like some type of checks because we are going to hear back from constituents, whether happy or sad. Even with right now with parking tickets, when residents get parking tickets or something, we get emails and calls about it. So I think that we do have a skin in the game, and I think that we should be kind of checking on it. And I kind of do feel kind of iffy about approving it, just kind of giving free range. Even I understand the public comment and everything, but there also is an argument that like the public comment doesn't like people don't know about it. No matter how much we try to reach everybody, everybody isn't involved in that process. No matter, and that's not a fault of anybody. It's just the day and age we're all trying to figure out how we reach everybody. So I do think that there should be some kind of checks. Like the buck, I think should stop with elected officials, not appointed. And I think that especially with something like this, that's a parking program that's going to affect people financially. I feel like there should be some type of clause in there where it comes back to the council.
Can I jump in on that? Because
I want Nora to go before me. Yeah.
I muted. Nora, I was going to have you get in your comment to add to this discussion.
Yeah, because I do tend to agree, and I think Josh, I am agreeing with your examples, but I think that a key point is that in a lot of those examples, we had not everything come back to the council, but an initial plan, right? So I personally would tend to agree that I don't think it makes sense for the council to be weighing in street by street, but I would like the initial guidelines for how this is to be done to come back to the council. Is it going to be a 75% vote of residents? Is it going to be a 50% vote? Is there going to be a fee? Is it going to, be residents only or, owners only, renter, like whatever the parameters of this plan is, I think it makes sense for that to come to the council. And it could be before the 30-day comment period. It probably makes more sense. It can be after, but there should be some opportunity for the council to weigh in. And again, to Lisa, to your point, we actually do that when the WPCA has their, did their MSP for whatever it was, like when they do a massive planning document, that does come to the council. So I absolutely think it's appropriate for the council to have oversight over the sort of big picture guidelines plan. And I think that's actually pretty standard and should be and is best practices and is something we have done in other instances. And I've certainly argued for in other instances. I do agree that I don't think we should then, weigh in street by street as it's implemented. But then I think to Josh's point, that does to some extent, then that would be the opportunity by which we could say, if we really are unhappy with it, then we can do it by ordinance instead to override. But we need some chance to weigh in. And I think it's more respectful to weigh in the previous, in the moment when the parking authority is still considering it, than to not weigh in and then override them without having had an opportunity to participate in the process.
Josh, is your hand still up? Did you have things
It
to
is,
say?
but I mean, look, I'm actually amenable to that argument, and it's not a knock on the parking authority, but I don't disagree with, especially because this is something that a lot of residents care about, that this is something that we probably should want another look at. I think it would be I was just looking at the language again, and I think it is a relatively simple change. Basically, it's prior to its initial approval, these guidelines and standards shall be subject to a 30-day comment period and public hearings in front of both the parking authority and the common council. I don't think that's really all that different a change. And I would imagine with this sort of a thing, Jim, this would come back to us, even if by virtue of a presentation at some way or form. Am I wrong about that? Or
No, certainly I think we do. I would just caution that we conflate the issues of of authority and a council, right? Because the authority operates without any city funds, right? And I say that time and time again because that issue is often confused
Sure.
on how we do it. So the parking authority operates in zero public funds, right? There is no taxes, no portion of this that goes to them. In fact, the parking authority pays the city, right? A percentage every year, right? So I do think there is a like so I think one of the issues I would like to put out is so if we say that we're going to have this 30, if we're going to have this 30-day comment period and and we review and look, it could be there are 30-day comment period. And if the, and if there's changes, there may be then a 15-day type period, right? To make sure that people are getting to weigh in on what the final changes are. Right. Or at least saying like we thought about this for X reason. I just think it would be confusing to tell the residents that they get an opportunity to vote, not vote, but have a say on a program, and that then could be overridden by the council who might say something different, right? So it's hard to get the two together and then still operate as an authority who's tasked with managing the parking supply in the city, right? And I think to date we've not been able to do this portion of it because it wasn't even an allowable issue. I think we've just started the the process of more citywide enforcement so that they could be responsive to residents who did that wasn't in their purview before. Their purview was only allowed to write a ticket if you didn't pay a meter, right? That was it. I think that is I think my concern is that would be like, how do we conflate the two, right?
Nora, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, sorry about that. I was trying to finish my comment before my laptop died. So I hear you, Jim, but I actually totally disagree because it's not like your 30-day period for public comment then agrees that you're going to adopt all those comments, right? Like there's a 30-day period to weigh in. The authority then puts forward their plan. The council may, for instance, decide we don't think the authority properly or sufficiently took into account all these public comments, right? Like it's entirely like I think the process is actually entirely aligned. The public weighs in, the authority puts forward their plan. The council, has the sort of ability to step in or not as necessary. So I think it's actually reinforces the fact that there is, public oversight and engagement in this process. And again, the buck stops ultimately with elected officials is I think something that we've really been trying to think a lot about in the city. I mean, this has been an ongoing conversation with the council over the course of this whole year. At the end of the day, voters should have the ability to hold somebody who's been elected accountable for major decisions. And this feels like another instance where it would be very helpful for that to be in place. So anyway,
Nora, are you imagining that this would be just an up and down vote? I mean, we're not the policy experts in this matter because we have an authority that we've established to be the experts. So do we want this to come back to council for an up and down vote? And then is that what we're expecting? Or do we just want to hold hearings where we get to weigh in with our thoughts?
It's a good question. My guess is that it would be probably make more sense to hold a hearing because I think to Josh's point, if we truly are so unhappy with the authority that we think that we need to then do an ordinance to change what they've done, then that's probably the process to do it. But I don't know. It's a fair question. I mean, I think this is for everyone to sort of discuss. I feel like we've done, I'm trying to think of what we did. I feel like with the the WPCA, their major proposals, like that huge plan, had to go through Public Works for a vote. Actually, I'm pretty sure.
That was
I'm
up or down.
Yeah, there was an up or down vote. I feel like I'm trying to remember um with the sidewalk dining.
So
feel
I don't believe
Yeah.
there was a vote on the
Right.
guidelines.
There wasn't. It was
There
just,
wasn't.
no,
I think
just,
when, I mean, Lisa drafted that ordinance
yeah,
when
no,
that,
we didn't
Right.
have a vote. We didn't have a vote on the guidelines because we viewed it as an expertise, but we did say that we wanted to see them and
yes,
comment.
Right, exactly. And I do
correct.
think those, and the ordinance was much more specific. I mean, it was still high level, but it was much more specific than this particular ordinance is. So we had
And,
already
and
given
I'd have
some
to take a
guidance.
look at how we dealt with this, Lisa and Nora, in Complete Streets and
Well,
cannabis, 'cause we had similar concerns. And I take Jim's
Right.
comment about the nature of the agency, because that is an important thing. Jim's right about that. Hey. However, um, and Brian, you can tell me if I'm wrong in saying this, but we do have a regulatory ability to oversee and provide oversight over the parking authority. It's not entirely a wholly independent agency. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about this in the way we're talking about this in the first place. So it's not just because the parking authority generates its own revenue does not mean that we don't have the ability to take a look at guidelines and weigh in.
Well, you also have I mean, in regards to this specific issue, whether you want to look at the guidelines or not, the legislature has the power to give power and has the power to take away that power.
True.
As you mentioned, Josh, you can pass this ordinance and give them the power to create this parking permit program. You can remove that power. You could also create a sunset provision, and say that the Common Council wants to look at this issue, this particular ordinance, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 1 year down the line to see how it's going. We get progress reports from the parking authority to see how it's going, to see if it's still working for the residents. And if we don't like it, we'll either amend it or we will remove the power. And if we like it, then we'll push it out further.
And
Do
again,
that
like
as well.
I really appreciate that, and that I think dovetails with the point that Nora and Jalen have been making, which is the council a lot of times does actually possess that power already. It's just a question of whether and how we choose to exert it. And I think that a lot of times we are rightfully deferential to to administration, department heads because of their expertise. That's true. And in fact, I mean, Jim sitting here, I mean, he did the guidelines and the design guide on complete streets, and they're excellent. In fact, I'm pretty sure like we're going to a conference pretty soon to talk about this because it's a real model. And I'm hoping we get to do that because I'm actually really excited about that. But so I think there's a level of trust that is absolutely warranted here. However, that doesn't mean we don't have the power to do everything that Brian just said, if necessary. It's just a matter of how we choose to use that power.
And Josh, I'm sorry to jump in on you. In Complete Streets, I'm looking at this as you're talking. In 33A10, it says when effective. This chapter, meaning Complete Streets, shall become effective on the earlier of the completion of the Complete Streets Design Guide and 30 days after the date of the adoption by the Common Council. We can amend that language however people want, if that's what you want, to say that the policy, whatever it is that we're talking about, needs to be completed before this is going to become effective, so that people have a chance to comment on it, people have a chance to look at it, do whatever it is that they need to do with it, however people feel comfortable with it. Again, with the ordinance as it pertains to complete streets, I believe it also to outdoor dining. You guys didn't get into the weeds on it, but you did, indicate that you wanted to take a look at it before it became effective. So that's at least what I found in Complete Streets. I'm looking for outdoor
Thanks,
dining as
Brian.
we speak.
Jalen, do you have another thought along these lines?
Yeah, just a comment, and I appreciate that, Brian. And I just know, at least for me, I don't stand as like an objection to this. I think that the parking authority, and I really like the process. It's just more of a precedence thing. I think it should come back to the council just so that we can be aware of everything, like in it, and really give like a firm okay, and when we have a better idea of it. So it's no reflection on TNP or the parking authority. It's just I just think precedent should come back to the council, so that people have somebody that they can hold accountable.
So Brian, do you want to put it up, and do we want to see if we can just put the language in that Josh suggested about having hearings both at council and at,
Sure, let me, which, what do you talk, what do you, you mean, for residential parking?
yes, please.
Yeah, hold on one second. I added the language that Josh was talking about in highlighted in yellow.
That seems like an easy thing. And then if common council doesn't like it, they can
Let
take
me
away
just
the
show you
authority.
also what I was referring to. And again, you know, and this is in, again, this is in complete streets. And you're looking at the bottom, when effective 33A10. It says this chapter should become effective on the earlier of, and again, you can play with the language if that's what people want, the completion of the Complete Streets Design Guide and 30 days after the date of the adoption by the Common Council. So again, you can play with the language however you want, but you could amend this in theory to say that this particular ordinance wouldn't become effective until the guide or whatever it is that you want to call it is completed, which would then give the public and the Common Council and any elected or appointed officials to comment to the parking authority about these things before it would eventually become effective. And again, as I've said before, this legislative branch here has the power to give this power to the parking authority. They also have the power to take it away if they don't feel that it is working for the city. So there's
I
also
feel like
that.
it's a little trickier to make this effective when it comes back, because we have to give them the authority to do it.
Right.
So I think that that's less workable than
And
the,
also in that particular circumstance, there was a design guide that was underway, and it was frankly a method by which to ensure the design guide's completion.
yeah, we were,
And that worked. In fact, I'm pretty sure that ordinance, the design guide was finished before the 30 days. Um,
yeah, different
but
incentives, yeah.
but I do.
I mean, what we could do is have it come back to council in that 30 days and have hearings in both things. And then at that point, the ordinance committee or the council, if they don't like it, can pull the authority, right? That gives you a back door. And that's effectively a yes or no, an up or down.
And just so everyone's aware, the Norwalk Cannabis Account Expenditure Guidelines shall be approved by the Common Council. It's in 29.9 of the city code.
Okay, well, that's
Again, that's, it's,
But that was
it
the city
varies with the
regulation.
ordinance.
Yeah, that was a city regulation regulating our own activities.
yeah. It was actually regulating really it was really the community services that falls under.
Yeah.
In which, by the way, I don't think those guidelines have actually been approved.
I know, come to think of it, we'll have to
No,
call
I don't think they have been.
Nicole on that. But that's, that's internal to our city
Yeah.
government. This is
Mhm.
with an outside authority.
Again,
So,
I'm going to post it back
Semi
on.
outside, but
I'm
yes.
going to show Josh's proposed minor changes here, that the public hearing will go in front of both the parking authority and the Common Council. That's a minor change to what we see in front of us here in blue.
can we get behind that as a committee? How do people feel? I mean, at this point, we're just suggesting that this go to public hearing.
So, and I just, because I think what we were talking about before is that, the final one would be like the 30-day comment period. Not that there would be a 30-day comment period by the parking authority. It just would be out there. So it would, like, it went away, so I might be missing it again. I just wanted to make
No, I
sure,
think
like,
that's right. If you're suggesting that this happens during the process,
or
it's
no,
more,
I think with the process, at the end of the day, right? I think, and I think this is how we did complete streets too, right? It was like, all the work was done, right? And at the end of the day, this is the thing we're moving forward with. That is the 30-day comment period, right? but I also think there has to be a time to reflect on that 30-day, like on the comments that came in, right? Are there ones that the ones that were missed? Are they ones that are warranted or ones that are not warranted? And I think then we could look at if it should go out for another period, or I don't want to, period this thing to death so that you're just like never ending into this thing. But I would like to be clear that, like, like at the end of the process, it could be, that 30-day. So I think there's two things. One, when would you want to weigh in on it? And I'm not opposed to it. I just think that I'm just trying to get clarification. Like, so I would believe that the process as determined would be what is for view to the public for 30 days so that everyone gets the opportunity. So it's not this continually working document, but it's it's the end procedure. And that's what the public gets for 30 days, right? Then from the council perspective, do you want to see that presentation come after the 30-day period when the comments were reviewed and that is a recommendation of program to move forward, right? And then you could do the yay or the nay, right? Or but I just think it would be odd if you're like then earlier you're doing it at the same time there is the comment period, because what happens if there's different comments that are
Relevant
adopted
and good.
because of
Yeah.
that, right? So I do think that it could be like, upon completion of the 30-day comment period and review of final practice, the presentation will be made to the common council, right? And then you can have a yay or nay, right? You can say, I would just caution that I don't think we can get into the nitpicky of like, I think it should be X, I think it should be Y, right? I
I
think
think
it
it
could
has to be
be,
up or down because,
yes.
this isn't, and then they can take it back. If there's like a strong feeling that there's one thing that people can't live with, then it needs to go back to the parking authority. How
Yep.
do you feel about that? Nora, you've got your hand up. Maybe you have a comment.
Yeah, no, I was going to agree with Jim. I think that that's right. I think that it makes much more sense for there to be a 30-day, for the parking authority to consider, respond, revise as necessary, and then for it to go to the council. And I agree, and I agree. Like, the idea is not for the council to necessarily amend. The idea is to say up, down, send it back if we think it needs amendments. That makes sense to me. So I think that approach, Jim, would probably be the best way of handling it.
I think it'll be clearer and cleaner,
I do
right?
too. I think it's cleaner and then it's very clear what the process is. So can we look at the language one more time? Maybe what we can do is make a quick change and send this to public hearing because it feels like we're all in agreement about how that should go. So the 30-day period, and we can take out the both, we put it in front of the public hearing. And then we just need kind of one sentence.
Where do you want the both?
Take out the and common council, the thing that we were adding for Josh. And then should we
Get
say,
rid of that?
yeah, and then shouldn't we just put in one sentence to the effect that the final version of the please, nobody go with my language today because I've got this head cold and I'm barely speaking English. But basically, what I want to say is the final excuse me, the final version will go to council for an up and down vote. Josh and Nora, can I rely on you with Brian to help me with the
Yeah,
best
no, totally. I was gonna say,
after the completion of the 30
probably,
day
yes, so
period?
yes,
Yeah, it's very
right,
small. I'm just like
yeah.
squint.
It's all right.
And
Let me make
Um,
it bigger. Hold on.
Thank you, Brian.
Don't you have to tie it to prior to initial approval, though? Or no, that the
No,
initial.
I think that's okay. I think that I would then say,
Prior to
uh,
official approval.
following the comment period, the public authority shall send the guidelines.
But the parking authority, not
Parking
the
authority.
Parking authority, sorry. The parking authority shall send the guidelines and standards to the common council, which shall by majority vote approve or disapprove the guidelines and standards as proposed.
What was it again? The last part?
Shall we approve or disapprove the
Shall.
guidelines and standards as proposed.
As proposed,
shall
yes.
approve.
Yeah.
No, so it was, okay.
I'm having issues with the S key on my thing, so
Yeah,
I'm
I
typing
was gonna say
slowly.
the S is missing.
Yeah, I'm
Funny.
missing a lot of S's
It's a little
here.
bit like my head cold, like where I'm missing some
Well,
words.
it's like an old school typewriter where your key
Yeah.
and your press keys
I
getting
gotta press
stuck.
it like 5 times. The parking authority shall send the guidelines and standards to the common council, which
You're
shall,
missing the S on standards, yep.
yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. I knew I missed one.
Standards to the council shall by majority of vote
Shall by majority vote
approve or disapprove
or disapprove.
the guidelines and standards.
Said guidelines.
Said guideline, yes, said guidelines, thank you. Said
Said
guidelines and standards.
guidelines and
And
Should
I
we
think,
say if they are, do we give them a second bite at the apple, or like, I guess they could just take them
They
back?
could always do it again and come
They
back.
can always do it again, so
yeah,
that's how it
exactly.
is. I think we don't have to say like they can come back if they wanna.
And maybe to that point, that's where Heather's point about taking out initial.
No,
in
no,
order
no,
to-
actually, the words,
I was gonna, I don't know if you said this already, Heather, but that sentence prior to its initial approval, do we need that?
that's at the end, prior to final, no, prior to, enactment.
Implementation.
Maybe it just says prior to approval, these
No, prior
guidelines.
to implementation is really what it is.
Yeah.
Like, once you get the up-down vote, it's they have freedom to fully implement however they want.
Right.
So
So I
after,
think it's prior, not initial approval, but prior to implementation. These
Yeah.
guidelines.
Yeah.
Prior to implementation.
Where do you want that?
Take out
It's-
initial
it's-
approval, Brian,
it's the
and
second
replace it with
sentence. There you go.
implementation.
Prior to implementation? That,
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, I don't think you say it's, I think you say prior to implementation, take the word it's out.
Yeah.
so it should say the parking authority such a 30 period and a public hearing in front of the parking authority.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
that
And I
looks-
think, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that shall approve or disapprove conveys this point. If it's an up down, it's not a amending and rewriting and
yeah, let me read it one more time.
And by the way, like these will be like, if we want to wordsmith it a little bit more, this isn't going to be, substantial
No,
changes.
these are minor changes because you guys are gonna be, I'm assuming you're gonna be following a similar.
You should get rid of the word these and just turn it to the guidelines and standards.
Yes.
Shall be subject to 30 public comment. Not in front of before the parking authority.
Yes. Before, yes.
Just turn 3 words, make it 1. Before
Yeah.
before the parking authority, following the public comment period.
Yes, I'd like to add that word too. I saw that too.
Public comment,
parking-
where's that?
Following-
Oh, yeah.
So following the public
Parking
comment
authority
period.
shall send the guidelines and standard. Submit the guidelines and standards. I'm pretty sure that's the kind of language we've used.
yeah, submit or transmit. I was
Yeah, well, either word's fine with me.
Yeah,
To
submit
the
to
common
submit,
council,
right.
which shall by majority vote or approve or disapprove said guidelines and standards.
comma between vote and approve. I think I don't know that you need it, or else there should be a comment before the by, between the shall and the by, that I think shall by majority vote approve or disapprove. I think it's better without the comma.
Yes, I agree. Take the,
Wait a minute, wait. Standards of the common council, which shall by majority vote. Yeah, okay, I'm fine.
Yeah,
good
I
with
think
it.
that's fine. I think that works.
Okay.
Okay.
How about, I'm sorry, just to be clear here. Because we're saying they're proposing them, the proposed version, that's what's going to be made available too, right? So like, because it says that a copy of the parking authority guidelines and standards shall be made available. Well,
upon approval, a copy.
yeah, but I mean, obviously there's 2 things. One, where are they going to be, where the proposed one's going to be, where everyone can find them, right? So obviously it's going to be on the city website, but we have to make sure that like they are it's that they're subject to a 30-day comment period, but also that they're publicly accessible during that time.
Right.
Shall be, I mean, this is actually pretty easy. Prior to implementation, the guidelines and standards shall be made publicly available and subject to a 30-day public comment period.
And just to, sorry, to wordsmith that, I'm pretty sure we, in the charter, we use posted instead of publicly available.
That's fine with me.
If you want to say posted, that's,
Posted.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think,
I'm pretty sure we use posted in the charter. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but
All right, prior to its implementation, the guidelines and
say
standards should be
publicly posted,
posted.
Nora, or just posted?
I'm sorry, I was looking for my copy of the.
Anyways, we need to get rid of the
Do
word
we say
may.
posted to the city website,
Feel like
the City of Norwalk website?
Well, while
It's
you're
actually-
waiting for Nora to look at that, it should say prior to implementation, the guidelines and standards shall be. Okay, take out the
Posted.
word made. Yeah, okay.
Should it be posted to the City of Norwalk website?
hang on 2 seconds. I feel like we define, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like there's a definition of what it means to
So I think
Like
it
the
should go to the
poster.
Park Norwalk website because that is I think the public, I think we could put links to it, but I think it confuses the issue to the public if we're just, of who's weighing in on it. So I think, like the reality is, we don't post we talked about the parking, the water authority report. We don't post the water authority rates on the city's website. It's posted on the parking, on the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe this phrase, so the phrase in the charter is public notice.
Yeah,
So that's the defined term, which includes posting sort of as a, on the in various locations, the town clerk's office, et cetera, et cetera. So I might just go with public notice. I hear
public notice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shall provide.
Yeah,
public
I
notice.
was looking for that, and public notice is where it is.
Yeah, I think that's and that way we don't
So
have to get
shall be
into the ins and
publicly.
outs to Jim's point about where exactly, like, it's just, that's the.
all right, so I think we can do that. So
Shall be publicly noticed.
if you just show it to us again, Brian, then we can
Yeah.
take a
Sure,
vote
hold
on
on.
it to take. Got it. Good. Okay, all right, team. So can I have a motion to take this? I want to make sure that I've got the right, oh, I guess we're just calling it residential parking program to
Yep.
public hearing
That's on October 21st.
on October 1st. Okay, Jalen has made the motion. All in favor? Great, good. All righty, thank you for that very detailed conversation, Jim. We appreciate it. Go get a glass of water and we'll see you another night.
Can I just talk about one thing and then you guys could talk about it forever?
yeah.
So just a thought, right? And because I know that you guys are taking up noise ordinance shortly, right? And we did look at the adoption of speed enforcement cameras and red light cameras. The state did also adopt a noise ordinance monitor, right? So it falls under the same guidelines, right? And the I think I did have a conversation with the chief about this, right? The chief gets a lot of complaints about the tailpipe, the aftermarket tailpipes on motorcycles that create that loud noise. Sometimes the aftermarket tailpipes on vehicles, right? Music that's so loud, right? That I think for our residents, it's really a quality of life issue, right? And I say that from a personal experience this last weekend, having dinner outside, right? And then sometimes it just becomes so deafening that you can't even have a conversation because there. And I know that we've been to I've been to a number of public meetings where people complain about it, right? Because it is on the road, so I kind of we hear it. there is an ability to modify that and to, because I know that you're taking up noise ordinance because I think it's of particular interest to people. And I think this is just another way to help enforce that, where it's really just if you have that motorcycle, if you have that loud vehicle, that you know that it would follow this, you know, under that same guidelines from the state legislation that the others two follow. And if we're going to look for someone to do this, right? That we look comprehensively to get everything that we wanted so that we don't say, oh, we want this later, and then that might be a different vendor who does that better, right? And I know it's good. I gave you another opportunity, another thing to talk about. But I just I firmly believe, I believe in my heart that this is a quality of life issue. You know, like, you know, those are, you know, like those motorcycles that go by with, you know, the aftermarket pipes. That's just, you know, I know it's a summer thing because they're typically more in thing, but, and then often the loud music is more because the windows are down and some people like to be, you know, noticed. You know, but this would just be an opportunity to look at that. And I think the general public would be in support of it, because it is just a common issue that we get with no way to resolve.
Great. Well,
So
thank you, because we
I
are
just wanted to put that
thinking about
out.
it, and it might be something that when we get to noise, and we're not really quite finished with noise, so we have time to, you know, maybe make some other changes. So we could maybe put that in and then take the whole thing to public hearing, vote for public hearing in October. So great. Thank you. We're
Okay.
going to do
That was
trees
it.
next, and then we'll do noise.
All right.
And I'm sure Heather's excited to have another thing for this.
Are you leaving? Are you leaving? Because I was just gonna make one comment about that.
Okay.
The thing that we talked to the chief about was it's part of their enforcement, which is a public health disturbance, which is under police versus noise ordinance. If somebody's revving their motorcycle continuously next door or running a auto shop, where it's continual noise, that's different. That's under noise ordinance. So it's two separate things. But we're trying to address the second part that we can, I think.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
I just
Thanks,
think that, you know,
Jim.
the state did allow for this, so maybe it might be something, you know, before we go down the path of looking for a different vendor, you know, I thought that we should address it to you for consideration because I do think the public would be responsive. But I don't, I challenge you because it's a difficult issue to take up. But in that note, I
Thanks,
will.
Jim.
Thank you.
All right, can I ask a quick question on that? When
Yeah.
you say
Oh.
vendor, so you mean the city doing a contract with someone to install like noise monitoring devices in the
Yes,
city?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And-
so the process is, you know, it's the same thing. So it would monitor that and then look for the vehicle, right? You'll
So
be able
if
to.
it hears a vehicle that is over a certain number of decibels, it takes a
Correct.
photograph of the
Yes.
license plate?
Yeah. So they would, so it would be the decibels that, you know, you determine, or is it, I don't know if it's determined in ordinance, or if it's determined from the health code, right, but it would be whatever the city's
That's
threshold is for decibels.
Okay, I
All
want
right.
to move on because we've got a lot of
Okay.
stuff.
All right.
So
All right.
thank
Bye.
you.
Didn't mean
We'll,
to, didn't
we'll
mean to
look
throw
further
anything else out, but I'll leave before. Bye.
Thanks, Jim.
Alrighty, thanks,
Bye.
Jim. Okay, so the next thing we have on our agenda is the tree ordinance, and unfortunately, we don't have, that's Robert or Sarah or even Ken. They're all at a conference. We wanted to just take it to public hearing. If you can just kind of put it up, Brian, I think I can walk people through it. There's not really a lot of changes. We have, we actually kind of need to do one more scrub on it a little bit, but I have a couple of the comments that I can do for the scrub. And we're going to have a couple of little cleanups that we would do if we took it to public hearing, more to do the his, her, and their designations and things like that we don't nor
It's
you know, now
potentially
that we've gotten
removing a
gender neutral in
definition
most of
and like gender pronouns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In terms of the
Yeah, all of
additional
that
things that
stuff.
have
And
not
we
been
thought
done
that
yet,
Sarah was,
not the other changes.
yeah. So if we can just kind of roll through it. Sarah, I mean, don't really have a lot of new changes from the last time that Sarah went through this with us. If you could start rolling a little bit, Brian, and I'll tell you kind of where to stop. the assessed value, basically what she wanted to do was, we had a different standard. Sarah has told us that what she's put in here is the better standard. We redefined tree master plan because we did one and now we have one, and we called it something different before, and other people were going to be in charge of it. So that's how we changed that. There's the tree master plan. If you keep scrolling, these are just small amendments that we're doing. The treescape is probably something I could have just asked Jim about if we need to keep it, but we think that we should. The tree warden, I think, is one where the his and hers, and we were going to try to fix those things up. Now, because we have a tree warden and a deputy tree warden, we're putting those types of things in. The what about the tree stewardship program? That might be something new that she put in. If you can just roll back like a half a paragraph. Go back. Oops, wrong direction, other direction. Sorry.
Tree
Yeah.
stewardship program, you want the definition?
Oh yeah, they want it, we talked about, we used to have a, yeah, I just was telling people that why that's being changed. We used to have a tree liaison program where we would get different members of the public to help us find places to put trees in. This is the same thing, except for they want to call it stewardship program instead. The tree warden, here's the his, her, or their designee. We're, as all of you guys on ordinance know, we now just say there all the way through. So that's pretty much how things go. One of the real reason for this change in the ordinance is they want to go away from the tree advisory committee to an urban forestry commission, which is really what Sarah's after to redevelop. So if you keep moving along, Brian, that's where the big changes are. Here's the Urban Forestry Commission. Right here is where we need to make one change right now. Brian, we might as well do it here before we make the changes. July 1, 2003, 2004, and 2005. Those years ought to be instead 2007, 2008, and 2009. And no, I'm sorry, 2027,
27?
2000. Yeah, 27, 28, and 29. And that's basically because we need to stagger the terms, so we don't want to lose our commission all at once. So we're going to get the 5 people on the commission. 2 will be on until the 27 to 2027. 1, 2 for 20, no, 1 to 2028 and 2 for 2029. Okay, good. That was something we should have fixed in the last time. And then basically what the Urban Forestry Commission
Should it
does
be
is a lot with
right here where the last sentence of this, should it be tree warden or their designee shall serve as an ex officio non-voting member?
Yes. So these are some, Tom and I are gonna go through this for, conforming it to our standards. But one of the things is that if we don't take this to public hearing in October, there won't be an urban forestry commission, and it seems like it should be a good thing to be it's very helpful to the tree warden and to Park and Recs, and so we want to try to stand this commission up before the end of the year. And so I think everybody saw these, Sarah walked us through all of these last time.
There were no more additions to what
There is
Sarah
no more
wrote last
additions.
time
Yeah,
so
it's
far.
pretty much all the same. I just wanted to get those 2 little things done. And before we took it to public hearing. So there might be just a couple of little cleanup things that we'll do one more time, but it's pretty much what we saw last time. So Nora, you have a question.
Yeah, I think this all looks fine. I just adding to your cleanup list, bless you. Just double checking that what I know with the charter, we're now requiring certain things of commissions. I can't remember exactly, but they're just making sure that this is synced up with that. I know you and Tom think about all that kind of stuff, but just flagging that.
Thank you for flagging that. I'm going to put that on my list just to make sure that we
Yeah, I
don't.
can't we have to establish, I can't remember, meeting something. There's just a couple things that I know were in there as a
Lisa,
or
you
maybe
give
it's
me
that
a
the
call.
charter
We can
provides
go
them in
over
the
this.
absence of them being in that. I can't even remember, but I know it's something that we were supposed to be keeping track of.
Good. We'll make sure that when we do our scrub this weekend that we pick up any charter stuff. So
Lisa,
what I'd
give me
like
a call after you're done looking at it. I'll go over it with you.
Yeah, and then I figure I'm back on late tomorrow night, so I've got time on Friday to do a scrub, and then Tom will do his scrub, and then but there'll be little things, and we can talk about those after the public hearing. So I would entertain a motion to take this to public hearing in our month of October. Thank you, Nora, for doing that. All in favor of taking it to public hearing in October? We may have lost Josh, but we're 6 votes. Oh, there he is.
Sorry, yes, all in favor.
Okay, good. So the last thing that we want to take a look at this evening, and I don't know that, Heather, I don't know how we should really handle this because I feel like there really is a little bit more work to be done. And Brian, I have to tell you that poor Brian has been working, morning, noon, and night on his trials and things like that. So I think we have a little bit more cleanup that we ought to do one more good draft before we take it to public hearing so that it all is completely complete. And we have time to do that now. So I don't know. I feel like I just want this to be really clean and tidy for you. And I don't know that we're quite a clean and tidy. So how do you feel about us, taking it one more month and maybe making, trying to get together sometime next week and we can work tightly with Brian on those last three sections, and then we can pretty much devote our October meeting to the entire thing, soup to nuts. And the chief couldn't be here tonight. He had kind of a challenge, so we could get him to join us, put that on his calendar. You're muted, so I really want to accommodate you because you've worked so hard on this and I want this to.
I think that we've done pretty much all of it other than the definitions, right, Brian?
Yes.
And then the tables. So everything else is pretty much done. I kind of feel like we could, if you guys are okay, just send
Yeah,
it.
so so right now what we have left is definitions, which is really the last thing to look at. The table is in 68.5 and then there's the variances in 68.11.
Which the chief said he wants just removed.
Yeah, so so what does he want removed?
The Washington Street one,
Yeah.
which
So if everyone remembers, I'll put it up, but as everyone might remember, because some of you might have been on the council when this went through the first time. There
None of us
was
were, actually.
none of you
None of
guys
us
were there.
were,
Okay.
not even me.
So you guys all avoided this headache the last time. So if you come to 68.5, I can give you a very brief background. So what we're looking at here in 68.5 is the sound level limits. And you can see in table 2, it talks about the maximum permissible sound, and there's some footnotes, and we have to talk about those footnotes at some point, probably once we're able to make some amendments on that, because the issue is really in footnote number 1, which makes enforcement very complex. But you can see the numbers that we're looking at in table 2 for outdoors, indoors, residential, daytime, nighttime, commercial, and industrial are completely consistent with what the state does and is completely consistent with what other municipalities do. It's the footnotes, specifically number 1, where we deviate a little bit, and that becomes a little bit more difficult to handle. You'll see in table 3 that we further deviate from table 2 by allowing commercial establishments to have different decibel levels, increased decibel levels, further complicating the police's attempts to enforce this by having to look at 2 different tables and footnotes. So you can see Washington Street and any other commercial district. Washington Street's actually treated differently than any other commercial district, but those commercial districts are charged a little bit differently than what you see in table 2, which just makes it incredibly complicated to enforce. No other municipality that I've seen has similar variations on these tables that we have, which makes enforcement difficult. So that's the table that Heather was referring to, the 2 tables in table 2 and table 3 in 68.5. I can go through it with you guys in more detail. I'll give you an advanced copy of any revisions that we make, but you're going to probably see a lot of red line slashes through 68.5 in the hopes of mirroring what other communities do and making 68.5 enforceable and readable by and can be implemented by our police department.
So is the idea, Heather, that we would hold the definitions and hold the table sections and consider them more in more depth at the next meeting, but send the changes that we've got so far in the other sections forward?
So I think that we could my feeling is that we could just get rid of what the table that the chief wanted removed and the note. I did speak to the Chamber of Commerce, Shannon G. and Durko, and she looked at, and she said it was, fine. She didn't see any issues.
No, do you have a question on that?
And here, sorry, just one thing.
Oh.
There is an added a way to get a variance so that if somebody really is having a difficulty complying with this, they can go to the health department and get a variance for their specific location. The other thing that's really important in here that allows the police officer to not have to read through a million tables and do all this crazy stuff. It's basically if they hear it, they think it's too loud, they can cite somebody for being too loud after the hours. And we haven't changed the hours. I would send this as is personally without the table and with the note gone, the way Brian's done it. And then I know people wanted to talk about the hours, but I would send it with the hours as is. And then maybe that's the only thing that I think.
Well,
So,
hours would be a substantial change. Like if we were to change hours, that would need another public hearing, I think.
so just so everyone is aware of what Heather's talking about in table 2, you can see in table 2 that they talk about the decibel levels for commercial, industrial, residential, nighttime, daytime. But then you take a look at note number 1 and it says if there's a residential receptor within a commercial zone or industrial zone or within 200 feet of such zone, then all the decibel levels are bumped up by 5 decibels. So the only thing I remember the last time from dealing with this is that if you go up 5 decibels, you're essentially doubling the sound. That's what
Yeah.
Eric Swerling told us. And it would also increase the daytime limits. It bypasses the definition and says that this would be allowed up till 10 p.m. instead of 8 p.m., which is what our typical daytime hours are from 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning until about 8 p.m. This would extend it to 10 p.m. So again, this note complicates it for the police. So the thought would be to potentially remove that and then also to remove all of table 3, which you can see treats Washington Street and other commercial districts differently. And again, that just further complicates enforcement. And again, if you take a look at table 2, this is how most municipalities deal with noise. They do not have other sub-tables dealing with specific districts. So,
Nora, you've got a comment before we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, so my comment is this, generally it's fully supportive. I am hugely excited about revising this and dealing with all this. I am a little reluctant to vote on it. I mean, these are major changes you're talking about making that weren't circulated, weren't, there was no notice to anybody that so I don't think I feel comfortable voting on it tonight, unfortunately. I think we
I don't
really
either.
need to post, a copy of this with those changes made before we
Yeah.
vote. And I hear Heather's point. I don't really want to move it forward piecemeal because I do think that it all kind of works together and I think it needs to be sort of discussed in context. And I appreciate very much you were reaching out to Shannon at the Chamber of Commerce, Heather. I do also think Washington Street bid, I think there's still a bid, a district, the Wall Street district. I just would like to make sure that folks who are going to be impacted have an explicit opportunity to weigh in before we move a vote forward. As much as I'm in agreement, I have no issues with these things. I think these are the right things to do, but I don't want to sneak it through and then get huge amounts of pushback.
Yeah, I'm a little afraid taking it piece by piece because people will feel it. And as I always feel uncomfortable doing something until the definitions are good because the definitions all need to hold together too. So I kind of, if we're doing something and we're going to change something, then we're going back to the definitions. It's very expensive to reprint the definitions, so I kind of feel like we ought to, maybe what we do is Brian, you, me, and Heather get together in the next couple of weeks and just do a full body, go through the entire thing. Let's get the chief to sit down with us. And I don't know if he needs a sound expert to look at the tables and just make sure that we have the most up-to-date tables. Because if we're going to do this, we ought to make sure that we have the best table, the best knowledge about the tables at this time. And then do it at one full time so that we get a good public hearing for everybody on all of the changes we're making. So it's integrated.
all right, I'll send the updated revisions on 68, 3, 5, and 11, which are the only 3 I haven't gotten to yet. I'll send those out so that people can see the proposed changes based on my comparisons to other municipalities.
And then do we need to have the Board of Health take a look at it too? I know we've got the chief very involved.
Sorry.
Oh,
We met with the chief.
okay.
He's the one, which is the good news. He said that they're used to when this was originally done. There's a lot of problems on Washington Street with residents who lived upstairs and the noises from the restaurants below. He said he's not hearing very much at all. And most of Washington Street is very happy with the noise levels at the moment. We also, Deanna who's the head of the health department, did weigh in on this as well. So
Okay, good.
we did loop
Yeah,
in.
and yeah,
Great.
and if
That's
we
great.
remove the table 3, it becomes easier for the police to enforce this, which will then also positively benefit people that might be negatively impacted on Washington Street and anywhere else in the city, because they know that the police have the capability of enforcing this because it's a readable document.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's great.
I'll get those changes out ASAP to everybody so we can get all of these changes on for the next meeting then, I guess.
Good. And then what I'd love to do, Heather, is share it with our committee early so that people get a chance to read it, before you get the agenda, because this will be a comprehensive, full noise ordinance, and I think everybody's going to want to read it as one body, one document. And I think that'll be helpful.
Yeah.
So our goal will get this done to the committee in 2 weeks so that people can be prepared for the meeting and understand it.
My only question is, we all got copies of all the other noise ordinances from the other towns and the states. Do you want us to recirculate those to everybody? Do you guys feel like you need those as well to look at
What other people have done? How's the committee feel like?
the state's guidelines, which we work?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing the state guidelines, at least just out of
Yeah.
curiosity.
And we just need to know, I mean, Brian will tell us, the state's pretty much said, here's what our guidelines are, but we're not enforcing them. So
They've essentially just thrown it. They've essentially thrown everything back to the municipalities. We no longer need authority to change anything the way we used to from them. They basically have just thrown up their hands and say, "You guys deal with it." They still have their guidelines. They still do enforcement. There's not a lot of it that they have to enforce, and all they ask is that we be as strict as they are. And you'll see from their guidelines, and the guidelines from the other municipalities, which I'm happy to share with everybody, that we're actually right now we're more severe, I think, than people because we have these additional layers. We do allow some leniency, but but this will make our enforcement better, and we're in line with everybody else with these changes so far. But I'm happy to send all the state and all the municipal ordinances to everybody, as well as the proposed changes that we have to the entirety once I get through 68, 3, 5, and 11.
And so one last thing, I know Jim was talking about it. Chief Walsh was separating the noise of somebody going down the motorcycle down the street making noise. He's like, that is, a public health issue that the police can automatically give a ticket or citation to. Whereas now, Brian, you built in, I can't remember exactly where it is, the fact that a police officer, instead of having to worry about windscreens and trainings and taking 3 different measurements at 3 different locations, if he comes and the police officer thinks it's too loud, they are allowed to cite somebody. So that is
it's in 68.
People will
I'll give
like
you where
that.
it is. It's 68 4D. Sound level measurements are not necessary when noise generated by a loud amplification device will be in violation of this chapter if it is plainly audible when it can be heard at a distance of 100 feet from its source.
So if somebody's having a rager and they refuse to turn the music down, the police officer can not have to go back and get their noise meter. They can just cite them right then and there and get them to turn it down. And
Right,
you know,
and that's in another ordinance. That's in another municipal ordinance. We didn't pull that one out of the air. It's anything that we added here was either multiple cities were doing this or at least one other one was doing this. And this seemed to be another way that we could use common sense and allow our police officers to enforce this with a little bit better efficiency.
Which is what we're after. Nora, you got your hand up, and then Johan.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say I do really appreciate that. I appreciate that it is still clear, there has to be there's some check. It has to be 100 feet away and plainly audible. It's not just randomly you can choose. There is some criteria for what that means. The only other thing I was gonna ask Heather, and maybe Josh knows, have you talked about this with Sabrina Godeski and Jay Habansky? Have the economic and community development people had a chance to take a look at this?
yeah, but we can. That's an easy thing to do. The other thing that's really different that people need to know about is when we were tracking, people that were perpetrating, I don't know what you call them. The police officers first gave out warning. So there was no way to track if people got warning after warning after warning. This allows the police officer to come and give a citation the first time. So it actually puts it on the record so that we can start tracking if somebody's continually making a lot of noise and disturbing their neighbors over time. And we also did not want to make the citation or the ticket or whatever, it was not meant to be punitive, but to just help us track what's going on and cover that. So that's in there too.
That's awesome. Johan, you've got a question?
Yeah, quick question. Okay, I should have asked Jim, but what Jim was saying before about the vehicles with these sort of amplified aftermarket parts, does anyone know if these types of ordinances distinguish between like a vehicle that has like an aftermarket part, and let's say the noise that's emanated from like a Harley Davidson? Is there like a difference or no?
I think there's a difference between somebody who has that, they've taken the muffler off and is driving down the street and the police are following them. And that, I think that's what Jim is talking about, having a reader maybe in a police car or someplace where it's red. This is totally different. This noise ordinance covers your next door neighbor or somebody that's, doing something continually, or does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we, Johan, just so you know, we changed the sections a little bit. We have motor vehicles and recreational vehicles, and we're saying that they have to be operated within the decibel limits set forth in regulations, the Connecticut General Statutes and regulations of the state agencies, and no sound amplifying devices or equipment on or within a motor vehicle or recreational vehicle shall emit a noise in excess of the decibel levels as specified in this chapter. So we have that section where somebody's, sitting in their driveway and revving their engine constantly or running a thing that's very loud, as opposed to somebody driving by, which is a different thing.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense. Yep. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. So great team. So what we'll do is we'll come back with a full-bodied amendment to this, and we'll make that a big priority on our October meeting. So I will take a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Josh. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Heather, we'll get in touch with you and Brian like later in the week. We'll get going on this. Make it a priority. All righty. Thanks, everybody. Thanks
Good
for
night,
coming.
everyone.
Have a good night.
Yeah, I'll
Good
see
night,
you.
everyone. Thanks.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.